So let's start, with the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. So this is a map of the region where Ishimoto works. It is like, beautiful, beautiful region where you can see this like in the snow-capped mountains, but it is also, place where you have the diversity of life, diversity of culture, all everything, right? Biodiversity, geographical diversity, and many other diversities. And from the satellite or the above, this is what you can see if you zoom into the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. It's like, largest ice mass outside the polar regions. That's why it is very much important for the people who are living here. And this region is a source of 10 major rivers in the system, these Asian rivers. It includes like 8 countries from Afghanistan to Myanmar. In the mountain and the hills, it supports about 240 million people. And in the downstream, it has 1.65 billion people. So altogether, if you add those two, it is about 1.9 billion people that are relying on the resources that we have at the in the SKS region. So what happens in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region actually affects the 1/4 of the humanity, right? Because our population currently is around 8 billion, and we have almost 2 billion people relying on this, SKS mountain areas and the resources that we get. Yeah, in the region, it is one of the densely populated region. So both like largest populated countries is China and India. Both are here, and you can see how the population is distributed around across the region. And more importantly, biodiversity hotspots are there in the region. And there are 3 actually notable features regarding biodiversity. Every year in the region, about 35 new species are discovered, which is an interesting thing, right? There are a lot of things unexplored, and new species are coming up. People are recording and discovering. But on the other hand, about 70 to 80% of the habitat of the biodiversity, those hotspots are actually gone. They're lost. If you compare it to 1500, right? That's the reference point. Meaning we are losing it at the very alarmingly high rate. And there is a chance of this endemic species, maybe 1/4 of the endemic species may be gone by 2100. So that's the big challenge for us for sustainability, how we can sustain our biodiversity in the region. And this is important because 60 to 85% of the rural populations are actually relying on biodiversity and related services. So this is basically linked with the livelihood, not only for flora and fauna, but also the livelihoods of the people who are in the region. So despite very high importance globally, the region is basically neglected because the poverty is very high in the region, and other challenges are there, which I will touch upon some of them, and now I'll discuss more. The basic challenge that we're facing in the region is climate change, right? In terms of the global issues, and also the globalization is actually changing a lot of things in the region. That includes the cultures in society and communities, those kind of things. Because this region is very diverse in terms of culture and other things, but because of globalizations, maybe we're losing our age-old traditions and culture, which may be more sustainable than the culture that we are adapting today. So that is another challenge that we're facing. So in terms of the temperature trend, the SKS region is actually warming much higher rate than the global average. If you look at the table here, so it gives you like a comparison between SKS region and the other global average between 2 periods. One is from 1900 to 2014, and the other one is from 1951 to 2014, a little bit more recent trend. But in both cases, the SKS region is warming relatively higher. That means whatever happens globally on average, this region actually warms at much higher rate. That's the science that is telling to us. So if the warming rate is very high, then what happens? So let's look at the schematic for very simplified view of the impact of climate change and basically on water security. So climate change means high temperature that might result into more or less rainfall depending on where you are, and other challenges. For example, if there is temperature too high, the snowfall may be less. That means melting of glaciers or snow or the permafrost might be accelerated. On the other hand, if rainfall is low, that indicates water scarcity. Or if rainfall is high, that results into extreme flooding, right? Our region is very much like, and we see all these three kinds of combinations in the region. Some places we got this less snow, ice melting, and then resulting these glaciers, lake outbursts, floods, Gulf, or the very long dry season, which is a drought, and also a lot of floodings in the region. And these events actually directly impact our water resources, energy, agriculture, biodiversity, and you name it, everything, right? And that ultimately impacts the livelihoods. And that gives a feedback to the climate change again, because livelihoods, whatever we do for our day-to-day living, that actually impacts the climate. Okay, so there is a direct link between climate change and livelihoods and vice versa. So this is one picture, from the high altitude. This is from Ladakh area, and you can see the mountains. So it's bare, the soil where these places you should be seeing snows, but it's melted and the glaciers are retreating. And if there is no snowfall, the local community who are living here will cannot live there, right? Their livelihoods actually depends on the snowfall in that region. So in terms of disaster, so if you look at the right side, the bar, that might be easier to read. You can see that the trend is increasing in terms of there are 4 indicators. One is economic loss. The other one is affected region and how many people are killed because of disasters and the extreme events, right? So everything has upward trend, meaning the disasters have been increasing in the region. And if you compare that figure into global figure, so you can see the similarities. For example, in this graph, you can see from the top, right? The top 2 things here, there are 2 things. One is, can you see that? What is that? So the top 2 things, one is drought, the other is a flood, right? Earlier I mentioned about the water, problem. And if you have too much water, it results into flooding. And if you have too little water, that results into drought. If you combine those 2, so almost 50% of these disasters are related to those 2 events. Okay, and if you add extreme weather and extreme temperature, that makes almost 80% of the disasters related, the events globally. And it has been increasing, right, over time. In 2023, you can see less, which basically means that the data is incomplete for 2023. All right. So let's move on to another challenge that we're facing in the region, which is air pollution. So look at this slide here. In the top corner here, this is Pokhara in Nepal, which looks very beautiful, and you can see the mountains from the valley. But just below there, you see the pollution, how much pollution Pokhara is facing, and you cannot see all these mountains. So tourism has been affected, and other you have other problems, which I'll discuss in a bit. But pollution is everywhere in the region, not only in Nepal. Look at the Chiang Mai, in Thailand, or Delhi in India, right? So air pollution is very much there. That's the challenge that the region has been facing. And the sources of air pollution, there are many, but one is the industrial, this power generation, mostly coal-fired plants, a lot of pollution, or the brick-kiln productions in the region, which is very much prevalent in almost all countries. Or you can also see this agricultural residue burning in most of the like Indo-Gangetic plains, where farmers actually, after harvesting rice or wheat, what they do is they burn the residue to clean their field, because that's the cheapest way of uh, uh, clearing the field for harvest. The showing another crops. Like for example, after rice, they start wheat, and they have the 15 days or so window for clearing the lands, and this is the cheapest option for them. But it has consequences. It has externalities. It has all the the pollution that we face during November, December, or in March, April, is one of the reason, not the only reason, but this is one of the major reason in the region. And another, the pollution source that we experience in the region is biomass stoves. Majority of households in the region, you still use solid fuel like firewood and agricultural residue and cow dung, all kind of things for cooking. And then that actually generates not only pollution, but it also impacts human health, right? When you inhale that smoke, that impacts health. So this is one slide from Nepal. If you look at the right-hand side, so what I did is I looked at the major cooking fuel in Nepal by province. And you can see two major fuels, right? One is, the blue one is biomass, and the green one is the LPG. So those two, energy sources actually, almost all cooking energy is met. Demand is made by those two sources, where we can say, LPG is relatively cleaner, because at least, if you burn LPG inside your kitchen, you may experience less pollution. In terms of human health, that's better. Okay. And in transportation, the same issue, right? Our roads are not clean, and it's roadside dust is very much part of the air pollution. It basically the suspended particles. And also using dirty fuel with the old vehicles are carrying overload in the street. That is another source of air pollution. So there are many actually, right? So let's look at the global information on the distribution of the PM 2.5, which is the particulate matter of diameter 2.5 micrograms. So if you see here, this graph shows that in our region, South Asia, this China and Afghanistan, this place, this is more darker. That means the air pollution, this 2.5, PM 2.5 is more concentrated here compared to Latin America or other regions. There are some countries in Africa which are equally, polluted, but South Asia, I'll show you in another graph. It is, more concern is there. Okay, so why pollution is a big problem? Why should we worry? Because if you look at the major drivers of the death, you can see this air pollution is the third, highest killer in globally. Actually, around 7 million people die every year because of the air pollution, right? And out of that, outdoor air pollution is more dominant. About 2.5 million people die each year because of the outdoor air pollution. Okay, so that's why pollution is very, very critical, a challenge that the region has been facing. Now you look at the distribution of the death because of the air pollution, and look at the region, how dark it is. That means the severity of the issue is very high in our region compared to even Africa. So we're worse than Africa in terms of the death because of air pollution. Okay, so that's why it is very challenging for us. If you look at the energy use in the region, what we can see is there are two major sources. One is the biomass, and the other one is the non-renewable energy, like the hydrocarbons, LPG, diesel, petrol, this natural gas, all kinds of things. So those two actually make most of our energy sources, where renewable is very, very low. You can see 1 column, 2, 3 columns, and this is Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar, so these countries. So regardless where you are, if you combine those two, you can see the picture, meaning we're using very much the polluting source of energy. That's the thing. And for our sustainability agenda, we need to be thinking about how we can actually replace this polluting source of, the energy to clean source of energy. Okay. And of course, there are other forms of pollution. For example, water pollution. If you just go outside and see, the water bodies in your country where you are living in the region, you'll find out how polluted our water bodies are. Like a soil pollution, which is basically not visible, but if you think of how much chemicals we are using in our agriculture, like pesticides, which kills not only the bad or harmful insects, but also good insects like bees. And bees are the pollinators. And if you kill the pollinators, the food production goes down. There is a direct, the linkage between pesticide use and reduction in the quantity of bees and all kind of things. Okay, so same thing happens with fertilizer and other chemicals. And another challenge that we're facing now is the plastic pollution. Okay. I'll have some pictures that will tell you the story of how challenging and how severe it is. And actually, to understand this pesticides used in farming, a few years back we did our research in Nepal, and what the researcher found is that farmers are actually using 4 times more pesticides than recommended doses, because they think that if you put more pesticides, you reduce the loss. Okay, and they actually tend to spread 4 times more than recommended doses. And what happens if they spray more? One is it is harmful to the soil, it's harmful to the environment, it's harmful to the pollinators, but it is also harmful to our health, because if we consume the vegetables that has a lot of pesticides, it has direct connection with our health. Okay, and we also did some research on plastic related issues, whether plastic ban can work, and I'll have a slide to discuss that in a minute. Okay, the answer is it doesn't work. The ban doesn't work to control plastic pollution. And look at this: what is happening to the environment regarding plastic pollution? Okay, so it's a massive problem actually. And look at the global distribution of plastic pollution. Again, South Asia and China, actually, in our region, like Asia, actually comes first. Okay, so this region here is, look at the plastic pollution.